Cape Monteverde, Albany County Airport Authority.
Mike Bodett, Thruway Authority.
John Scalvo, Town of Clifton Park.
Chris Wallen, City of Schenectady.
Kim Lambert, Saratoga County.
Mike Petrie, City of Saratoga Springs.
Andrew Kreshik, City of Troy.
Lisa Raimondo, Albany County.
John Scheiwen, Port of Albany.
Peter Rensler.
Sandy Misowitz, Transportation Council.
Go that way.
Sorry, Adam McCall, Transportation Council. Martin Hall, Transportation Council.
Melissa Shanley, CBTA. Madison Fresco, City RPC.
Andrew Tracy, Transportation Council. Phil Shaping, Stantec.
Matthew Rowe at Stantec.
Tom Romano, Town of Colony.
Jesse Vogel, Lavella.
Bill Trudeau, City of Albany.
Julia Heller, Region One.
Osborne, oh, sorry, Osborne, DOT.
Back to this from State DOT.
Lorenzo Stefano, CF.
Just
So listening virtually, we have Ed Snyder from GPI, Laura Robertson, Town of Skuna, Ethan Townsend from the Transportation Council, Parker Morris from the Transportation Council, Leah Rye from the Transportation Council, Wei Ben Yang from CHA, Ryan Riper from the Town of Wilton, Rosa Torino from Albany County, Mike Williams from CDTA, Nicole McGrath from Federal Highway Administration, Jeff Pangburn from Rayton Manning, and I think that is it. Yes.
Thank you, Sandy. No visitor issues. Nobody's registered, so we'll move right to the presentation, I guess. Are you introducing this or somebody? Are we?
So
Avenue West
Andrew,
Corridor.
you want to do the introduction and
Sure, so we are wrapping up, we're in the final stages of the Central Avenue West corridor study that kicked off last year. The study area was the portion of Central Ave in the town of Colony, west of New Carner Road, all the way to the town line. Near Allendale Drive, which is just short of Balltown Road. So this stretch of road, the town approached us last year with, they wanted to develop concepts to spur development and redevelopment in that part of Central Ave that they felt was underutilized. And they also wanted us to look into transportation concepts to help reduce excessive speeding and try to improve safety in that part of Central Ave as well. So we were pleased to work with the Stantec team on this study. I'll introduce Phil Shaping and Matt Rowe from Stantec. They'll take us through the slides. Phil, will you be speaking first? Turn right over to you. Yeah, go ahead.
And Sandy, what's the best way to advance?
you could just kids.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Phil Shaping. I'm a senior associate at Stantec. I'm also an urban designer and planner, and I was the project manager for the Central Ave West corridor study.
And I'm Matthew Rowe, also a senior associate at Stantec. I was technically the deputy project manager, not sure.
I believe so.
But yeah, on this study, with, and I bring a transportation and mobility, design and planning background of, about almost 20 years now.
All right, so next slide, just really quickly, wanted to kind of briefly go over the scope and focus on the recommended concepts that came out of this study. So as we go on through the next couple slides here, Stantec was the lead consultant focusing on the land use and the transportation concepts. We were supported by planning, who led our community engagement. The process for this was really, or the purpose of this was really focused both on transportation and also land use along this stretch of Central Avenue. So we were looking at the multimodal safety improvements, but then also the complementary land use conditions there to try to encourage more mixed use and walkable redevelopment along the corridor.
Just so you know, it's bouncing because I think you guys had this on a timer, so I'm just gonna. It keeps advancing on its own. There's ghosts in the room today. I really apologize.
Very
So in terms of process here, we had 3 phases. If we go to the next slide there, existing conditions, then we checked in with the community to start off to help identify issues and opportunities in the corridor. From that, we developed the draft corridor concepts, brought those back to the community and got feedback from them both in person and online, and then finished up with the final corridor concepts. Throughout this, we were working with NISTOC, who is an important stakeholder in the corridor, as well as the town. So Matthew, you want to start us off with some of the existing
Sure.
conditions?
We can go to the next. So, existing transportation conditions, just very quick show of hands. And many of you are at least passingly familiar with Route 5 Central Avenue through Colony. Okay, great. I've, driven, walked, biked, and, taken the bus on, this corridor. Conditions are challenging, right? There's speed issues, they've been documented. The sidewalks exist, but are often in poor condition, poorly maintained. There are extremely long distances between crossing points. You can see on the next slide. So our scope, as was mentioned, it's almost precisely 3 miles from just east of New Carter Road to Allendale at the Skeena Town line. And in this space, there are only 4 traffic signals, one of them at the very end, actually 2 of them near the very end, New Carter, and at the Aldi Plaza. Besides the emergency signal, which is not a pedestrian signal, there's a full 1.77 miles between the Balltown Road signal and Bushicle Road signal. Retail uses, some commercial uses, some automotive oriented uses are there. They're varying conditions, some of them are better maintained than others. There's some residential uses in the corridor. And we secondarily looked at the Albany Street corridor, in part because there's an interest in seeing whether that would be a viable alternative as a multimodal corridor. It's a 5-lane principal arterial. It's a state DOT road. It has about 22 to 23,000 motor vehicles per day. And as you go west toward Niskayuna, that number actually goes down a little bit as you get into the section with fewer traffic signals. So that section in particular has high speeds. That's where you see Albany police going and sitting at the various driveways there, and that's actually where we've documented this. It's got the 355 CPTA bus, 27 stops along the corridor. So obviously a lot of those stops don't have a safe crossing point, with up to about 1,700 day riders. The Red Line BRT ship in the region runs along this portion of Central Avenue, but it doesn't have any stations within the study area until you get to the New Carter station, very end. And Albany Street is a 2-lane road. It's primarily residential, some little bit of industrial and commercial. In parallel, I use very generously here to keep going. So we have a documented history, unfortunately, of severe and fatal crashes along Central Avenue. And even in just the 3-year period that we analyzed, there's a fatal bicycle crash. There's another fatal crash just a few weeks ago. And 95 injury crashes were documented, 18% of which were severe injuries, A injuries. That's not counting all the history before that time, which Tom, if you want to ask Tom about, we'd be happy to enumerate all of them. So there's a long history of safety challenges. I'm like clicking my thumb as if it's going to do anything.
Oh, yeah, just keep it. I'm not seeing that.
Turn it to Phil for land use.
So on the land use side, this is sort of typical of a lot of conditions in the corridor. It's, a lot of retail, some commercial, some sort of like light industrial landscape, outdoor furniture type of locations. If you go to the next slide, there's also several mobile home parks throughout the corridor. So there are people living right on Central Avenue, many of whom may not have a vehicle or may only have one for their household, and so are needing to walk or bike or use the bus through there. There's also, we've identified around 60 acres or so of vacant land along that 3-mile corridor. A lot of it are in pretty small parcels, and that is one of the challenges to redevelopment here, is that a lot of the parcels are pretty small, which just from an economics perspective makes them more challenging to redevelop. If we go to the next slide, another key thing that we looked at was the zoning in the corridor for the land use side of this study. Looking at the zoning to understand what's allowed there by right, what do property owners need to go through a more onerous, special permit or variance process. The zoning, the commercial office residential zoning district applies to all of the properties along Central Ave and even extending a little bit off on either side of Central Ave. And the purpose of that is to promote mixed use and pedestrian friendly areas. So the goal is there. What we found is that some of the requirements within the zoning don't really match up with that, don't really allow that by right, which just sort of raises the barrier to redevelopment. So we'll talk more about that when we get to the recommendations. On the next slide, just to very quickly recap our public engagement. You'll see on the next slide here through our 2 open houses, project website and interactive map that we had up there, as well as a couple of surveys. If we go to the next slide, we were able to engage almost 500 people throughout this process, which was really good. Particularly the open house event for the draft concepts had some great participation, great comments. We also were working with the study advisory committee, which included DOT, the town and the village of Colony, police there in Colony, CBTA. So it was a great representative group that provided us feedback throughout the process. Go to the next slide. This is just an image from one of our open houses, an example of some of the feedback that we got. And what was really encouraging to see both in the in-person and online feedback was a lot of support for the concepts to encourage more vertical mixed-use development along the corridor and for the roadway reconfiguration recommendations that Matthew will talk about in just a moment. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Matthew to talk about the transportation recommendations.
So the transportation concepts developed are meant to match with the land use concept, right? So the idea is to make enough improvements to the roadway that the street will actually be walkable and bikeable, make it safe, comfortable, even attractive to walk and bike, and to improve transit connectivity and the ability to actually cross the street to get to the bus, matching with the mixed use development possibilities here, so that everybody can actually have better options for getting around within the corridor and near it. So since there's a lot actually to attract along the corridor. So there are 2 basic things that we're going to talk about in the along the right of way. There are 2 sections. One has a median and shared use path recommendation, but retaining 2 lanes in each direction. The other is a potential lane reconfiguration. So we'll talk about both of those. Existing conditions have wide right lanes and about a 60-foot curb to curb width. The right of way itself varies from about 90 to about 100 feet. So this is kind of showing the optimistic portion of the right of way, the part that's largest. But in general, the buildings are set back a decent distance from the roadway. Sidewalks are narrow. So we go on to the next one. So east of New Carter Road, from New Carter to east of Wishick Hill Road, from Wishick Hill to New Carter, from where we are sitting now, think of it as from New Carter to Wishick Hill, in the moderately higher traffic volume area, though not as high as it is here near Wishick Road. We'd be recommending retaining 2 lanes each direction and enhancing the sidewalk into a shared use path and essentially moving everything back further on one side of the street, back further from the roadway, so that there's a larger buffer zone between all of this traffic at the walking and biking and micromobility paths. On the other side of the street, there would be a sidewalk that could potentially be widened from its existing condition, in some places up to 10 or 11 feet, and with a good buffer zone. So some of this would involve a lot of design that would deal with existing things like the fronts of the parking spaces that go into the public right of way. And so in some places there'd be decisions to make. Okay, are we going to have a narrower shared use path, or are we going to go to the effort of reclaiming that public right of way? So we can keep going. Very exciting, west of Lishikill Road, there's really a lot of possibility here. And I want to talk about this configuration and some of the options for it. One of the reasons to do a lane reconfiguration, I don't like to call them road diets because it's not really what it is. It's really a reconfiguration of the whole street. One lane in each direction, which especially in an unsignalized segment is going to be more than enough to carry the traffic that exists there. Left turn pockets, not full long left turn lanes, but left turn pockets adjacent to medians. This is kind of a view as you would see more or less at an intersection or approaching an intersection. Well, left turn lane is here in part so that left turners, if you think about if you're pulling up to this intersection from the opposite side, you'd be facing the median and turn left here. They're facing the median that's next to you. So you'd be going in to the left in order to get that median. There's pros and cons of that approach, but it would have some value for aligning left turns. So that aside, there'd be pedestrian refuges. There'd be room for both pedestrian refuge and a left turn lane at every intersection, which is very valuable on a street like this. It'd be significantly more permeable, more crossable for people walking, getting to transit, and people biking across it. There'd be a distinct sidewalk and raised bike lane at or near sidewalk level. Usually in a climate like this, we'd want the bike lane to be at sidewalk level, and with a decent amount of buffer space to the roadway, a good 4-foot buffer, more than the minimum recommended. So this would create a very different walking and biking environment than we have now. It would moderate speed issues. It would make it significantly easier to cross the street. Whether you're doing that, frankly, even if you're doing that in the car, and significantly easier to turn left onto the car. Okay. There's a few assorted other transportation concepts that are relevant here. One is that across the cross streets, there are often no marked crosswalks. Those cross streets are often a little wider at their kind of mouth at Central Avenue than they need to be. So painted curb extensions can be marked to narrow down that mouth where they meet Central, shortening that exposure distance for people who are walking along Central Avenue. An important thing we heard from the middle school, from the Lishikill Middle School, which is on Waterman, would be to actually build a sidewalk on Waterman. There's another concept that we're not going to get into in a lot of detail here today, but would be to create an off-road connector, a trail along the current utility corridor that actually runs from Albany Street and then could come all the way to Blythe Road and possibly connect to Sand Road and to the crossings at all. We have been working with CBTA, as was mentioned, on things like an infill station. So there are a few candidate infill stations that are floated in the report between Balltown Road and New Carter, which could be a node, a nexus of redevelopment. And so we tried to match those proposed locations or potential locations. It's not all three of them are truly proposed. There'd be a process to select one with places where there's potential for redevelopment. And in order to deal with some of the right angle crash issues and some of the vehicular access and flow issues, we have, I won't say proposed, but we've identified the potential for a new signal at Lansing Road, subject to signal warrants and other analysis. Lansing Road had the highest number of vehicle crashes and then develop an access management plan that would actually create long portions where there wouldn't be left turns out of driveways or into driveways, and instead, drivers accessing those would go to the next signal or to the next intersection that has a left turn lane. Those have to be developed very carefully with respect to truck access, since trucks can't make that U-turn. Large trucks can't make that. So, you know.
All right, to wrap up then on the land use and development, I said, focus was really looking at the zoning because that's what is telling a property owner what they can or can't do with the property. And so if we go to the next slide, as we started to look at that COR zoning, the main purpose of all of this was to first increase the property value for the owners. By increasing what's allowed by right, because at the end of the day, those property owners are making a financial decision that doesn't make sense to tear down, my one-story, half vacant office or commercial building and do something different, a mixed-use development, something like that. And also trying to reduce some of the barriers in the development approval process by allowing more development by right. To do that, we recommended creating a sub area for the Central Avenue West segment because there are several other COR zoning districts in the town that were not part of the study. These recommendations may or may not be appropriate for those. And the biggest thing is increasing the amount of residential that's allowed by right. So if we go to the next slide, in working with the town and their planning director, we proposed sort of two different levels that they could do this at. Basically increasing what's allowed today, which is essentially 4 units per acre, quarter-acre lots. Very hard to get walkable mixed-use development at that sort of density. And instead bring it up to somewhere between 15 and 25 units an acre. So that's between probably a 2 or 3 story and up to a 5-story vertically mixed-use building. And that is also helpful for supporting transit BRT ridership. And it's going to be able to help then bring more residents into the corridor to support the types of neighborhood serving retail that we heard a lot of interest from all the people who live in those neighborhoods just off of Central Avenue. Then we go to the next slide. And as Matthew had mentioned, an important part of this then is trying to encourage compact critical mass at a couple locations along the corridor. Along these 3 miles, realistically, it will take decades for a significant amount of redevelopment to happen there. If it's sprinkled all along that 3 miles, it's going to be very diluted. If it's focused around a couple of key intersections, a new BRT station, a new off-road multi-use trail corridor that's connecting different destinations to the town, it's going to have a much more significant impact. And so that's what we're really encouraging here. Then just to wrap up on the last couple of slides here, next steps. This is really about kind of a virtuous cycle of public investment in transportation improvements, the town making some of these zoning changes to then encourage and support and incentivize private investment in mixed-use development. So if we go to the next slide, this is obviously just a very hypothetical representation, but you see some of these key elements and how they start to work together to really completely change the character of segments of this corridor. Again, you're not going to see this along the whole 3 miles of Central Ave anytime soon. But again, if at a couple of intersections, at a BRT station, at a trail point connection, to see this sort of development for the town, that's also increasing property values, which is going to their general fund, which can help them support other services for residents throughout the town. So in terms of just implementation, I'll let Matthew finish up with this here in terms of some of the key points.
Sure, thanks. So I won't make any bones about it. The next step, the largest question and the most central action here is really for New York State DOT to consider the right-of-way improvements and to begin to identify, along with regional partners and town, to identify funding. For the town of Colony, some of the main questions and next steps are to figure out how to maintain the median, the proposed median, and to improve or expand really the amount of maintenance that they do to fund that, to do shared use path maintenance. They already maintain the sidewalks for snow, but not, obviously that's different from maintaining a shared use path. The next would be to construct the Waterman Street sidewalk, sidewalk, to Wishikill from, to Wishikill Middle School from, Central Avenue. And the largest action for the town zone changes, and to think about, connectivity for the off-road trail, which is a matter of utility coordination, which to some extent is already, started. For CBTA, the biggest next step is to continue to coordinate with the town to pick a station site for an infill BRT station. And for that to make sure that that's matched with zoning. Yeah, and then
And that's really sort of it. The private side is, this is one of those things where the zoning and the transportation investment has to create the conditions to encourage private owners to make that change. So that really, I think, was one of the, again, sort of going back to the very purpose of the study, and also one of the lessons from this is trying to connect the transportation planning, transportation investments to encourage some of this land use change, land use development improvements over time, to take advantage of the transit and the other services that are there. So with that, thank you very much for your time. If we have a couple minutes for questions, we're happy to answer those, but if not, thank you very much for your time.
Guys, any questions?
How do buses operate on corridor? Like you're gonna get bus stops in the one lane and lets off.
in the one lane each way corridor. Today there are bus pull-offs. So in the future, preferably they would stop in lane, preferably for the sake of the bus, they'd stop in lane. And that's a question for, honestly, for CBTA, the town and that side to think about, but the town has expressed, I believe, that the pull-off, the existing pull-off bus stops aren't really preferred or necessary. Certainly in the 2-lane section, they're not, the 2-lane each way section, they're not preferred or necessary. Yeah. So I've successfully not answered your question.
The buses create, those situations, because we looked at them in the city, the buses create blockade.
Right.
So you have 27 stops local, so that's 27 opportunities for someone following them to go. Stop.
Yeah.
You don't have a way to get around the bus.
Yeah.
And you really, on that situation too, you have to actually have that, because what you end up getting in Schenectady, especially, you get people who, when they find an opportunity to pass the bus, legal or not, they pass the
Yeah.
bus, and then you get into that conflict zone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just didn't know how that was gonna be approached, because if you had a pull off, then you're eating into your buffer space and your lane and your bike path, so that doesn't.
So Chris, we have a shared right turn and queue jump at New Carter Road that works very well. And CDTA was participating in the study. They like it a lot. And they want to see more when there's a bus stop at an intersection. I think that's their preferred configuration. They can act as a right turn lane for drivers when a bus isn't present. When a bus is present, they can use it as a pull off. They can rejoin traffic safely instead of needing to wait for a big gap and muscling their way in. So we'd like to see more shared queue jump right turn lanes. If there were new BRT stops.
Right, especially in the one lane each way section. Yeah, but yeah, dependent on both the right of way at that spot and also traffic analysis. Traffic analysis will play into it.
Any other
There's another
questions?
question.
Is that it?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Guys.
Thank you.
Right, moving along, the administration, previous meeting minutes, August 6th, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Kim.
Tim,
Sorry,
John,
any further discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Anyone opposed, abstained? Motion carries, thank you. One action item, I believe, today, right? Or maybe
we have a couple of action items, but one tip a minute.
one tip amendment. Village of Nassau, who's gonna present the amendment? We have some presenter or?
I don't think we have a representative. Do you want to speak to it, Andrew?
Yeah, I can cover it. This was a request from Village of Nassau, working with Lorenzo Cuneo from NISTOT Local Program Office. They're looking to get design authorization on one of their TAP projects, Village of Nassau intersection and pedestrian upgrades. This is an older TAP project. At some point, HSIP funding was added to the TAP project to cover some of the items in the scope of work. They're going for authorization. They want to move design from last year to this year, so it's in the current fiscal year. By the way, today's the first day of FY 26, so happy new year, everybody. And they also want to, at NICEDOT's request, they want to change the HSIP phases to CRP because NICEDOT felt that that was a better fit for those particular parts of the scope of work. They weren't confident that they were HSIP eligible and could be authorized quickly with that fund source, but there's CRP to spare. They told us, so they want to move just the HSIP phases to the CRP carbon reduction program funding. Because that is a change in fund source that involves our formula funding, in this case, the CRP, that triggers planning committee approval needed for what would otherwise be a normal admin mod. So that's what Village of Nassau is for today.
So 1.3 million in CRP out of our CRP. Well, I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know
I'm not
where
really
we're
clear
at
about
with that. Is this a state thing or is this coming right out of all?
The formula funding we get is about 1.1 million a year, but we barely touched it. But whenever we asked NICEDOT about it, they say there's plenty available. I guess there's maybe CRP flex, like you're suggesting, that could be used for this. I think they're just trying to use up all the available carbon reduction funds as quickly as they can.
Okay, so
This is a fund source at risk at the federal level, so the more we can obligate now, the better.
I did, yeah. Carbon reduction is probably
You said the
bad
keywords.
couple of names.
Their schedule is on,
We're more into coal.
their schedule is on it.
Yeah, they had to move the design phases to 26, which so they can authorize it now, but they're still on track, they say, for construction next year.
Okay. Any questions? Can I get a motion to approve the village's tip amendments?
Andrew
And
and Lisa.
thank you, Lisa. Any further discussion? Those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, abstained? Thank you. Motion carries. We have a draft resolution to support NICEDOT targets for safety performance.
Yes, because everybody loves talking about the performance measures. So we did receive from NICEDOT, their, per federal law, annual safety targets, for the state, and the MPO has the option to, approve and support these targets or, create our own. We traditionally, and for many very good reasons, have just supported the NICEDOT targets. You will see in the graph that I hopefully is also streaming online. Let me just make sure it's there. For those folks, it is. I have in this table, the 2025 target versus the proposed target for 2026. And you will notice that they slightly increased the reduction percentage from 1 to 1.5%. This is a statewide figure. What we did do, just for your information, is we compiled our own crash data. Which, just to show you the trends here in the capital region versus what is happening statewide. And the line to pay attention to on these graphs is the red line. So what you'll see is that, the trend line for what we call the 5-year rolling average. Because that's the look back that the requirements is required per the regulations. We're trending upwards in all of the categories. So we have traffic fatalities statewide versus region. Then the VMT, the crash rate, fatalities for the crash rate, also trending upward. Same thing with the serious injuries, the number and the rate trending upward. And then for non-motorized, again, unfortunately for us, the line is even more striking in terms of the upward trend for bicycle and pedestrian. So, once again, this points to why we did the Capital Region Vision Zero Safety Action Plan and why we're going to be spending resources over the next couple of years looking to implement that, because we would like to contribute towards these reduction targets. And it's important that our planning and our capital resources go toward one of the most important things we do, which is safety. So we're asking for you folks to approve, it's the support for the state's, safety performance targets for this
The
year.
increase, right?
Mhm.
Question goes in, is the percentage decrease based upon the actual incident rate? Or is it just the trending of what is desired? Like, if it continues to go up and the past 3 years, we've not met the reduction percentage desired, does that get adjusted moving forward?
So they adjust it every year. They do a 5-year look back. That's why they call it the rolling average. They recognize, I'll use the Schoharie. I know it was outside of our region, but it's something dramatic like a Schoharie limousine crash where we had a lot of fatalities can skew these numbers. So they do a 5-year rolling average for all of these factors. And that's why you'll see year to year, if I put up all of the years that we've done this, the percentage might go up, might go down, depending on what's happening statewide. COVID was the really game changer, because crashes went up statewide and stayed up for a couple of years. So we're just now starting to see things more evening out, which is why they were able to calculate a slightly more aggressive, reduction target for this year. That's the simplest way I can put it.
Thank you, Sandy. Can we get a motion then to, I guess, what are we recommending?
Just as, to approve the resolution in support of the safety targets. And that will be going to the policy board.
Motion? Get a
Mike
second?
and Lisa.
Lisa, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed, abstain? Thank you, Sandy. On to discussion items.
One more, action item.
Oakland
The solicitation, the annual solicitation for planning studies. So I'll review this quickly. The spirit of what we're doing, the presentation we heard at the beginning, which is one of our linkage studies. This is that program. We've kind of expanded the solicitation to include other activities like data collection, the ADA transition plan and data collection related to ADA transition planning, and a number of other activities as part of this solicitation. Probably the biggest language change you're gonna see is we're no longer talking about new visions, we're talking about emotion. And the whole regional planning priorities and project examples section was revised to reflect our new long-range plan and the different strategies that were identified in the long-range plan, most of which are similar in style, but I think this articulates what our current priorities are. So we are seeking proposals from communities, regional entities, in the community planning linkage program area that can be, preparing what we call the traditional linkage program plans. It could also be a data collection effort. Maybe it's a local policy development. You're working on a zoning revision project. You're working on a complete streets policy. So policies could be proposed. We can also provide training. You may remember we did a complete streets training program a few years ago. If your community is in need of something like that, we can also support that work through this solicitation. And because of the unique way we assess ADA transition plans, we also sort of call out the ADA self-evaluations and transition plans. We've had a lot of local governments participate, even now some counties, but we're hoping to continue that work. So if you're interested in ADA transition planning and data collection efforts, we're also soliciting for those. There is a cash match contribution of 10% of the total project cost. We have set aside an estimated $300,000 for the program. My keyword is estimated. I have not yet received from NISDA our planning fund allocations officially, so I'm just going off of our best guess right now of what the estimated resources are, but that is subject to change. The ineligible activities continue to be many of the same things, detailed engineering work, detailed land surveying, these sorts of things that lean into engineering. And most of the rest is pretty much unchanged from past solicitations. So, we're looking for your approval of the solicitation guidance today. We'll be making it known to the public, probably by Friday that this information will get out. Applications are gonna be due December 5th. And in the guidance document, we do have a sort of, not only do we list the evaluation criteria, but the timeline. We are going to hold a sponsor webinar on October 16th. It'll be I think at noon. So if you have questions or you want to just learn a little bit more about the programs and how we approach things, you're welcome to attend. And that's pretty much it. Any proposals will get incorporated that are recommended for funding. We'll be bringing that back to you guys in January to the planning committee, you guys. And then we'll incorporate them in the Unified Planning Work Program for our next fiscal year, which begins April 1st.
Thank you, Sandy. Any questions? And so you're looking for a motion to just approve the guidance and get it out to
Yep.
the public?
Yep.
Can I have a motion to that effect?
Lisa
So,
and Tom as a
got
second.
a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye? Anyone opposed, abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Sandy. Now on to discussion items, right? We have tip amendment guideline revision.
Yeah,
Discussion?
so this is not something we have a proposal for, but we wanted to just bring to your attention. Our current tip amendment guidelines don't address situations that are time sensitive very well. And also related to some of these discretionary awards that we find out about sort of quickly. And how we deal with that, right? So a lot of times what happens is if an award comes our way, and it needs to be obligated by a certain time or certain things need to happen, we have to not only get you guys to meet, we also have to get the policy board to meet. And we only meet the policy board every 3 months. So as you know, we had a situation a few weeks ago where we were trying to convene an emergency meeting of both the planning committee and the policy board at the request of NISDOT, to address a particular project amendment because some funding was trying to be changed. And what we came to realize is that, we don't have a good way to address these things short of calling these meetings. So we just wanted to hear and maybe offer, see what your opinion would be on a couple of things. One, where we have a discretionary award, we don't, and Andrew, please chime in when you can. The way that our structure for the amendments is, we don't really have a category for discretionary programs. And how we would address them in our amendment rules. It is new money, but it's not new money from our core funds. So one of the distinctions that we make here is there's funding that's sort of dedicated to the MPO, if you will, from both FTA and FHWA, which is locally decided, and we all spend a lot of time doing that. And those fund sources typically are your National Highway Program funds, your Highway Safety Improvement Program funds, and our Surface Transportation Block Grant funds. CDTA's funding, just because they're the only direct recipient, they're not as competitive on the FTA side, so we don't run into competitiveness problems. But when we have a discretionary program award, or there's some other funding coming from the state level down that are not part of our core funds, which are typically not controversial. This is good, this is good news for us. It's adding to the program. We just don't have a mechanism in place to get that funding assigned to a project quickly again, without convening both you guys and the policy board. So like I said, I don't have any proposals today, and we don't want to circumvent your roles and responsibilities in terms of our members and having the opportunity to weigh in on these opportunities when they arise. But we just wanted to hear and bring this to your attention to see if you had any thoughts, if we either reduced the requirements on, say, tip amendment timelines, or had provisions in the tip amendment revision procedures where when additional money is coming to the MPO area, that maybe that becomes either an admin mod or limited to the planning committee. Again, we don't want to take away the authority of the policy board, but times are a little different than we've had in the past. You know, things are moving at a pace that go beyond what our meeting schedules can allow. So this is just for discussion. You know, we can talk further about it. We just wanted to introduce, did you want to add anything from your perspective?
No, I think it was complicated a bit by the end of the fiscal year coming before the next planning committee and policy board meetings were scheduled, so they were trying to obligate it. It ended up falling through, but they were trying to get it obligated in September, right after the September planning committee meeting in this case. So if we had a way of doing it more quickly when, like Sandy said, if it's an outside discretionary award, I don't think anyone's gonna dispute that money coming to the region, but we would still want to keep everyone apprised of it.
I mean, I know I've worked for organizations in the past that actually have boards assembled for emergencies. So they'll create a committee of individuals from, let's say, a mixture of the policy and the planning that are meant to be there in the event that something has to be done in a, you know, quicker timeline.
So I was gonna suggest similar, Saratoga County Planning Board has, if something can't meet a meeting schedule, they can get 2 members online of their county planning board and approve something. So there's like a standing MOU of something can't make a regular scheduled agenda. You know, here's the policy in place to, you know, still get buy-in, but at a limited scale, and knowing these things never get denied either. So it's,
How often do these circumstances occur? Say over the past few years?
So we've had, I think this would have been the third, since I was director, I think this would have been the third time we would have had a convene, quote, an emergency meeting. Most of them happen to be tied, I think, to the Livingston Avenue Bridge project. But you know, well, to that point, it you know, it points to sort of the scale of that project. And you know, I think it's also affected some of CDTA's timelines too, because you guys have gotten some discretionary program awards and you've had to wait for us to move forward on things. So, you know, not to say that, you know, we can't convene special meetings for any one of our members, but it does appear now, again, when they renew or redo or whatever they're going to do with the infrastructure law at the federal level, their discretionary programs may be going away or maybe modified in some way that we may not be in the same situation, but with very large projects going on in our region, increasingly, you know, we know 787's in design. We know the 378 bridge project is looming. So, you know, these discretionary awards, I have a feeling are going to become more common. If those programs exist at the federal level. So, I do see Nicole McGrath's hand is up. So I'm going to let Nicole from Federal Highway chime in. Go ahead, Nicole.
Oh, yes. Hey, Sandy. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to throw, just for your consideration, I know BMTS, the MPO in Binghamton, they've had situations where they weren't able to vote at the policy committee because of a lack of quorum. And so they have used like a virtual vote for situation, like emergency situations like that as well, so that where the members had to vote online on the resolution, you know, by a certain date. So that would, I think, need to be something that would be in your bylaws, but I wanted to throw that example out from another MPO.
Great, I may follow up with you on some of the details. I'll talk to the director of that MPO. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I was thinking, if you could do, you know, an online notification, maybe just to the policy board. So that they can give an affirmation or a nay, to something within a defined, time period. Which begs the question, well, what happens if you don't get the quorum vote? But at the same time, it provides an easy access for a decision upon something in a quicker manner.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts?
For the discretionary awards, the timeline is tight once the award is made, but there's always a long lead time from the time of the application. Would it be helpful to have some sort of just overview of submitted applications at the time as like a, you know, to see if there's any resistance to the project or objection should it be awarded?
That's a good point, because I think sometimes we are aware when applications are submitted, but sometimes, especially some of the local governments, we might not always know. I'd like you folks and NISDA for the most part, we know, but some of the local folks maybe not. But yeah, thank you for that suggestion. Okay, well, that's great. Thank you for the input. We're gonna try to come up with something again. It's gonna be limited to what I'll call the good news stories when some additional money is coming to the capital region. But we'll try to find a mechanism that works a little better than trying to hold emergency meetings together, on Fridays at 11 AM. So thank you. We'll circle back with some ideas at our next meeting.
Thank you, Sandy. Summary of 2022-27 tip.
Yes, this is the monthly roll-up of admin mods that didn't meet the threshold for planning committee or policy board approval. We had a lot this month. It was the end of the fiscal year and a bunch of things just needed to get moved either into next fiscal year or minor changes that they could be obligated by the end of this fiscal year. So 2 pages of changes this month, nothing too exciting to report otherwise.
Okay, nothing you want to highlight, everything's seen.
Um,
Okay. Basic.
We still provide this as a catalog of all of the admin modifications because we're making more and more now outside of your decision-making process. So this is just so you're aware of all of these moves that are happening outside of our approval process.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. NISDOT project delivery.
Thanks, Steve. We don't have a lot to report on. We did have a wedding in September 25th. And some of these projects come along and we kind of scratch our heads. Particular project was the Green Island Bridge. Pretty straightforward project for us. Didn't look like a lot of work zone traffic, restrictions, miracle weekend work. Basically some replacing a traffic signal, some intersection reconfiguration and a new bike path, but we received no bids on the project and I think our construction was estimated right around $2 million. So obviously gonna put it back out. But sometimes we scratch our heads trying to figure out what, why we didn't, nobody even threw a crazy number at it. So right now, we're kind of scratching our heads on that one, but other than that, pretty much business as usual. Most of our bids have been coming in pretty much on budget. So that's good news overall.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
On the status of regional transportation planning initiatives, Sandy.
Yep, so on your screen, you'll see that we're wrapping up the Broadway study. It was presented at prior meetings. This one's just about, the final report's just about done. We're working with our municipalities to approve or adopt the findings of this study right now. Central Avenue West is also just about done in terms of the final report. We have gotten started on the County Route 109 study in Half Moon and Clifton Park in Saratoga County. Public meetings are tentatively being scheduled for October as well as stakeholder meetings. The Route 7 project in Niskuna, I know that's Route 7 corridor has been in the news a lot lately with respect to safety. It sounds like they are kind of drafting and finalizing the recommendations for the study area. We understand that this is a sensitive project study area. So as soon as we have sort of the draft ideas available for public review, we'll bring up a presentation to this group. And we're still, we finally got all the MOUs and all the program guidance out to Boston Spa and Saratoga Springs, so we'll be starting those as well. Our technical assistance program remains active. We have 4 active planning studies now. And as you know, we finished the in motion plan. The 378 planning study is nearly completed. And we are initiating the 88 project in Albany County. completed the Vision Zero safety plan, so a lot of these are gonna be dropping off our list. And we're still working with all of our partners on the Schenectady County health study around the SUNY Schenectady. So not just a quick status, but with the solicitation out, we should have some new initiatives as a lot of the planning work is getting completed.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Regional and local planning updates. Back to you, Sandy. Anything?
So you heard Andrew mention today's October 1st. In a normal time, we just adopted a new tip, as you know. October 1st would be day one of the new tip, and it's prepared the statewide tip. We don't have a step. Just for a little background, two of the MPOs, New York City and Buffalo, actually had some challenges assembling their tips this time around. New York City had some discussion and I'll say debate amongst their member agencies about the allocation of funding down there. And I'll say in Buffalo, there was a significant public comment on one specific project that was a NISDOT project that I believe NISDOT is finally working through to address to get the tip over the finish line in Buffalo. So their tip is to be approved October 7th. And at that point, it'll all get rolled up into the statewide tip to open that for public review. So we do not have a new STIP now. So all the amendments we made today are actually amending the current tip that is still the active tip. But we hope by the next meeting, either the STIP will be close to being approved at the state level, or certainly we'll be deep into public review. So it is delayed. I just wanted to share that for your information. Couple of other things we're hiring. So we're looking for a transportation analyst / engineer type person, so technical person. So if you know any younger engineers or analysts interested in working at the MPO, you can go to our website and find the job notice. And that's all I'll share today.
Thank you, Sandy. CDRPC, I don't see.
Just give some updates. Our annual workshop is Friday, October 17th. You can find the link for tickets on our website. Also, we just updated our housing affordability report, which takes a look at the hourly wage for renters compared to the hourly wage required for fair market rent. So this is whether or not our renters are able to meet their housing needs. We're also working with the Transportation Council to complete an EV siting analysis for the city of Albany through our technical assistance program. And then in the hopper with us is taking a look at job migration to and from the capital region, highlighting brain drain or potential brain drain. That's it on our end.
Okay. Thank you. CDTA.
Hey folks, Mike from CDTA here on the line. Sorry I couldn't be there in person today. Just a very brief update for this one. Last month, we finalized our transit development plan, and it was adopted by our board of directors. So the TDP is now officially in effect, and we're excited to continue applying it to our service changes in the near future and beyond. I actually coordinated with Sandy last week. We're going to meet with CRTC staff this coming month, and we are tentatively planning to present to policy board in December. So we're looking forward to that and more to come.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Nice that. Randy.
Just have one staffing change. Just wanted to mention Alex Poland on our local projects had left DOT for a short period of time. He is back. And welcome to have him back. Welcome to have Julia on board. So just long story short, Lorenzo is going to be moving strictly to the construction side of things. And then Alex and Julia will be split in 8 counties for design. So Lorenzo is just very well versed in that, and you know, that's And I think it's a good fit for everything. It's a nice adjustment and, we can definitely, use the extra help there. So happy to have you both have you back.
Thank you.
And that's it.
All right, thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Thruway Authority.
So I just have two projects. We had a letting recently for the Route 7 rehabilitation project. That came about almost 40% over what was budgeted, so not more to come on that. We're not sure what we're gonna do there. And we have a letting today from a paving project from exit 24 to 25.
Thank you.
Just related to the cost increases you both are experiencing, if maybe at the next meeting, if you do analyze it, I'd be curious if things like tariffs are impacting cost of steel or some raw materials, or where it sounds like your experience, these are very high numbers, so
For the Route 7, we had an increase of like 800% on pavement.
pavement.
Yeah, it's shocking.
Obviously,
I don't know
this
if it's
is
related to like oil prices. I don't know.
That's what I was trying to get at, if there was like materials reasons that this was starting to happen, and we've seen that prior, but now these are doubling and almost tripling in some cases of, it's gonna affect all the projects in the whole program, so that's why I was curious.
Yeah, I think we find, a lot of times it's a combination of factors, but that one stands out and, with a couple other projects that we got just, very high bids on. A lot of it came down to restrictions and just there's a risk. There's a big risk involved with some of that, with these miracle weekends and, so it's a challenge. Yeah.
Is that a technical term, by the way, the miracle weekends?
I don't think so. It's just, they have a very short period of time to make adjustments, to switch traffic back over their work zone. And it's a very short window that they have to get a very lot of work done. So that's just kind of internal turn point. So.
I think with that Route 7 bridge, that's part of the problem because there's elementary school right there. So the timeline of getting this done is very short.
Yeah, so timelines.
Yeah, and then liquidated damages on top of that, that adds up. So they're building that in thinking, okay, if I'm gonna take the risk, because otherwise, some of these contractors could be out of business pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, Albany County Airport.
Morning.
Yeah.
Construction is going well. I mean, it's progressing along. I think we're still looking at summer 26 for it to be done, but I know we were aiming for that queuing area, which is the big point of concern for many people, to be open hopefully by the holidays. I haven't heard anything on that. I had a kind of busy month, so I guess I can't speak to that one way or the other. We're looking at access, improving access and out of the airport. I don't think I have to speak much on that. You leave the EI, you still have to go past the terminal, so we're gonna keep looking at ways to improve, as to complement the master plan as we develop. And then I guess just kind of interesting of note is our passenger volumes are still very high compared to the average for airports our size. Small hubs saw about a 1% decrease in enplanements. We're at about 9% increase over last year, and we continue. A big reason that's Breeze and Avello. Depends what happens with Spirit. We should see that continue here, though. I think it just depends on when. So
More flights.
Yeah.
Thank you. Albany Port District Commission.
Morning, everyone. The signal has been activated on Corning Hill and River Road, so if you're traveling down there, there is a new signal that has been in construction for quite some time, that is finally in working order. And then at the last meeting, our CEO was here, and we had anticipated to do a Port Industry Day at the middle of October, but we will be postponing that till about May. So, got a couple of months, so we'll look out for an announcement once we have that all situated.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Anything? Local government? Anybody?
Just a reminder, February 11th, 2026 is the infamous Saratoga Planning and Zoning Conference, so keep an eye out for that.
What day is that? of the
That
week?
is a Wednesday. At the
It's not
Saratoga
conflict
Springs
with the
City
planning
Center.
committee meeting
It
next
does
year.
not. At the Saratoga Springs City Center.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I'll just make note of what upcoming meetings and events. Please note, when's our next meeting? We are scheduled for November fifth.
Yep.
Please note the other meetings. Anything you want to highlight, Sandy, in particular?
We're out tabling, in Schenectady and Glenville this weekend. Come visit us. And, we've got 2 advisory committee meetings coming in October, well, one in October, Active Transportation and Human Services on November 3rd.
All right, then I guess all we need is a motion to adjourn, if we can get that. Motion. We get a second? I'll second.
Steve.
All in favor, aye? Anyone opposed, abstained, thank you for taking time out of
Thanks,
your.
and thank you for your
Okay.
patience today, folks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, still people.